You're listening to Coach Mike on the mic. Let's talk hoops. A podcast that brings hoop fans together and their stories to life. Coach Michael Herrera is a Texas high school basketball coach with 3 state Final Four appearances and a lifelong fan of the game. He'll sit down with coaches, players, and fans to share stories, game perspectives, X's and O's, and lessons learned along the way. Now, let's talk hoops.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with my high school basketball coach, Coach Lee Stubbs. Coach Stubbs has coached in the San Antonio area for many years and was the head coach at Douglas MacArthur High School for over 20 years. He has collected over 500 wins in his career and has definitely left his mark in the coaching fraternity in the state of Texas. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Coach Mike on the Mic, Let's Talk Hoops with my high school coach, Coach Lee Stubbs. First, let me say thank you for joining me on Coach Mike on the Mic, Let's Talk Hoops. I'm sitting down with my old high school coach, Coach Lee Stubbs. Coach Stubbs has been coaching basketball in San Antonio at Douglas MacArthur High School, has collected over 500 wins, and I'm just extremely honored to sit down with you, Coach. So thanks for joining me this morning.
It's my pleasure, Michael.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
And now it's time for Layup Lines.
Well, so to begin every episode, I start off with a warm-up, just like 2 teams going at it, right? You've got one team on one end, the other team on the other end. Both teams are warming up, doing layup lines, so I like to call this layup lines. I'm just going to ask you, Coach, 5 questions, and then when I'm done, if you'll fire back 5 at me, and then we'll kind of get the ball rolling on the interview, okay?
That sounds great.
All right, question number 1 I have for you is, if you could go back in time and choose to change your career to anything other than coaching basketball, what would you have chosen as a profession?
I probably would have been a greenskeeper at a golf course.
Yeah, you know what? That's probably what I'm looking forward to, maybe in retirement, going and doing something like that too. You still getting out and playing golf a lot?
I play 3 to 4 times a week now.
Man, that's what I get to look forward to, Coach.
Well, some days it's not very much fun.
I'll never forget, too, because when we were at MAC, you used to have us sell a Valero Texas Open or whatever it was called back then. You used to have us selling those tickets for people, and I was like, what the heck is this that we're selling?
Right.
But, lo and behold, I never knew that you were a golfer, but now that I'm into coaching, man, I love golf, so. All right, question number 2, favorite thing to do now that you are retired other than golf?
I spend a lot of time with my grandkids. They're in the pool just about every day during the summer and trying to work my 7-year-old grandson, teaching him how to throw baseball and shoot some basketball and that kind of thing. So probably it was up until COVID, we did a lot of traveling, but that shut down. It's, I guess, favorite thing to do right now is play with my grandkids.
How many grandkids do you have, Coach?
We have 3.
Okay, and their names?
Jack's 7, Ford is 3, and Ava's 2.
Awesome. Now, Jack, is that short for Jackson, or is his name Jack?
His name's Jack, just plain old Jack.
All right. Well, I have a 4-year-old son. His name is Jackson.
Okay.
All right. Question number 3, favorite movie or favorite movie genre for you?
I like mystery movies. I'm not really into movies that big, especially over the last few years. I couldn't tell you the last time I went to a theater and watched a movie, but just mystery movies.
Gotcha. All right. Question number 4, the last book you read.
I am a very avid reader. And unfortunately for me, I read usually 3 at a time. And the last one that I'm working on three books right now. The last one I completed is called The Splendid and the Vile. And it's about the bombing of the year-long bombing of London during World War II. And it's a story of the Churchill family and the people of London during that time.
Are your books typically historical based?
I try to read 2 historical based and 1 brainless at the same time.
All right.
And so I have a favorite mystery writer named Louise Penny she's written 16 different books, or 16 books. She's Canadian, and she's always on the bestseller list. And so I just finished her latest that just came out 1st of September. I just finished it. So
very good. When I was growing up as a kid, you wouldn't catch me with a book, but now that I'm grown, I'm an adult, I'm professional, I'm coaching. I can't put books down. I love reading books. So, sometimes I've got 2 and 3 books that I'm kind of filtering through at the same time. So we've got that in common. Last question I've got for you, Coach. If you were sitting in my shoes and it wasn't called Coach Mike on the mic, it was called Coach Stubbs on the mic, who would you want to be sitting down talking with right now?
Wow, now that's an interesting question. Of course, a lot of the people that I admired and watched and tried to emulate, a lot of them are dead. So I guess that I've always enjoyed Coach K, so I'd probably want to be talking to Coach K. I think Roy Williams would be an interesting guy to talk with because he's, like Coach K, he's very intelligent and he's a golfer. And so either one of those guys.
All right. Fantastic. Well, those are your 5 questions, Coach. Now shoot your 5 at me.
Well, I probably am more basketball based here on my questions.
Go for it.
But I can revise mine real quick because I want to find out more about your career there at Steele. I remember when you got that job and thought that it's going to be a great opportunity for you. And I see where you've also had a lot of success in the classroom as a teacher. Do you plan on getting a head job down the road?
So that is my plan, Coach. I've been at it for 15 years. So this is the start of my 15th year at Steele. Steele's been open for 16 years. So I got here the year after they opened. When Coach Mitchell was here, they didn't have any lower level basketball coaching positions for any sport for that matter, since they just opened up. But yeah, that's definitely my goal. I'm definitely pursuing my first head coaching position. I kind of gave myself a goal that I'd like to be a head coach within 10 years or so. And I'm kind of past that mark. I've had some interviews, but haven't had that yes yet, but still waiting for that opportunity and can't wait to be a head coach. So, yep, definitely.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I think that one of the things that you've always got to keep in mind is the quality of the job. Don't take a head job just to get a head job, because some of those jobs out there are graveyards. So when you're considering a head job, make sure it's one that, isn't going to kill your career.
Yes, sir. You got it, man.
I've seen that happen too often. And with the current shutdowns in schools, how are athletic periods for basketball players being conducted?
So right now what we have is obviously everybody has to wear masks in school, in the classrooms, in the hallways. But when they get to athletics, it's a little bit different. They still have to wear it in the locker room when they're getting dressed. They still have to wear it when they're walking into the gym. We typically have our guys wearing their masks all through stretch lines and their warm-up and agilities and whatnot. But once we get going with drills and getting up and down the court or even shooting stations, they don't have to wear it. It's not our rule. I think it's the CDC rule. As long as 2 people aren't congregated within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, then they don't have to wear a mask, which kind of doesn't make sense. So with basketball, we're always on the move, and no one should ever be standing next to somebody for more than 15 minutes on the court. So,
oh gosh, no.
But they all carry them into the gym. They all kind of put them down on the bleachers. They got their own little spots where they put their masks. And as soon as we end practice and we huddle up, they go get their mask. They put it back on. And then the same goes for, going back into the locker room and getting dressed and going back to class.
Right. So you do have all of your players at school on campus then?
For the most part, for varsity, we do. Got some kind of hit and miss kids on the JV and lower level. Our freshmen, definitely, we're probably 30%. That's it.
Okay.
Most of those kids ended up staying at home. For whatever reason, I think maybe it's freshmen. They don't understand the whole athletics kind of thing yet. So we haven't had tryouts yet. We really haven't technically had tryouts for JV or varsity, but for the most part, everybody that's supposed to be there is here. So we pretty much know who our team is, but no, not every kid is back. So kids can come back at the beginning of the 9 weeks if they choose to. But as you know, we start basketball on October 28th. So it's kind of like you want to play, you might want to start showing up.
Right. Well, this time of year to me was always so important. We're getting ready for the season. And, by that first day of practice, I wanted to have a lot of things in, and I wanted to know a lot about my ball club, what to expect. And, we always had transfers. And, I was thinking the other day, I thought, my gosh, if you didn't have a chance to work with some of these guys and know what kind of players they are, then starting after school practices would be pretty tough, because then you're in a discovery period at that point in time that you should have done back in August and September.
Absolutely. Yep.
To me, tournaments are really important for development of a ball club, getting ready for district and preparing you for district for a lot of different reasons. And, I always tried to go to the best tournaments we could go to. And, I didn't want to go to any tournament that, it's just a bunch of pugs there. I wanted to play good competition. And since this year y'all aren't going to get to go to tournaments, how is that going to affect preparation for district?
I think that goes into a little bit of your scheduling and making sure that you're getting those quality games in. But now we're playing basically 3 days a week. So we're playing Tuesday, Friday, and Saturdays.
Wow.
Which, you think about it, Coach, you've got your lower level teams too. So usually when varsity is away at a tournament, especially if you're out of town, your coaching staff goes with you. So your lower levels don't play. So now you've got more games for the JV and freshman levels, because anytime we schedule the game for varsity on a Saturday, we're going to play a JV and a freshman game. So they're going to get more games this year at the lower level than ever before. So that's good for your lower levels, and for your upper levels, for your JV and your varsity. You just want to make sure that schedule is packed with some good quality teams. So I think a little bit has to do with scheduling, and then definitely getting those games in as soon as you can, because when COVID happened and we learned about no tournaments, man, people were on their phones left and right, because if you waited even a day, some people would pick up 3 and 4 games. And so now it's like you might end up playing a team that you're just going to, unfortunately, probably beat pretty bad. But those good quality games, those were picked up pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I think, in tournaments, it's always good. You're going to have a game or two that one of the things I always liked about tournaments, it gave me a chance to play the bench a little bit more, perhaps. And I could see what that bench, those kids off the bench could do, because in practice, you've seen this. There's some kids look in practice like they're going to be world beaters, and you throw them out there on the floor and they can't play a lick.
That's
they can't
right.
play dead.
Nope.
And so I always like those tournaments, because then I could find out who I could count on and, who I need to be encouraging to do a good job on the candy bar sale. I've been wondering, and I've talked to other old coaches, and we try to not ever say, remember back in the day, or that kind of thing, because I heard that a lot when I was coaching. But it seems like, and I watch a lot of basketball, I go to a lot of games, and it seems like over the last 10 years, scoring has really dropped off. And I was wanting your opinion on that. And, I see teams that, they can't be averaging 50 points a game. And I see good teams that aren't, if they're averaging 50 points a game, it's a stretch. And I was wanting your opinion on why scoring, even with the advent of everybody shooting so daggone many threes, why has scoring dropped off like it has?
Coach, that's an interesting question. It's hard to answer it with one thing, but this is my opinion, and I think this is a great discussion for a lot of basketball coaches. But I'm a part to whole coach. I think you can't go to the part until you teach the whole. So if you're teaching some kind of motion offense or something, you've got to show the whole picture, but then you got to break it down into the parts and give kids opportunities to be successful within that offense on making the passes to the open guy, looking for that guy. Nowadays, kids, if they don't do anything with the ball in 2 seconds, they just want to dribble the ball, with 10 or 15 dribbles, and they're going absolutely nowhere because they don't know how to be patient. So I think sometimes they're rushing shots that they probably shouldn't have taken to begin with. They don't understand the context of the game and the flow of the game with that whatever coach is coaching you. But if you're not working on those skills, I feel like every kid wants to shoot a three today. So anything outside of a three, they don't have the skill set to get to that 15-footer, to get into the paint and make something happen for their teammates because they just want to stay on the perimeter and shoot threes. And it's kind of like a lost game now inside the paint. I think your successful teams, though, that do score a lot, it's going to be dictated by your pace, by your defense. I don't know, Coach. You tell me. I don't really see the half-court offense anymore. I see run and gun, which I love. That's my style. I'm a half-court run and jump, scramble kind of defense. I love that. I like my defense creating my offense, which I know we're going to give up buckets by doing that. But I just don't see a methodical now I'm not talking about a 40-second, possession.
Right.
I don't see that disciplined offense looking for that flex screen or a back cut. It's typically a 5-out, dribble drive or something like that. And I don't know, my opinion, I don't know if all kids are ready for that. I think it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a lot of education and teaching for kids to truly understand the flow of the game without any rules and strict guidelines on pass here, screen here. Because you have to have guys that can think on the fly, and react to what the ball does. And we got to put kids in positions to be successful with the skill set. So I don't know, Coach. That's a tough question to ask and pin it down to one area. But I think the teams that score a lot are going to probably dictate that with their defense or their press.
Okay. Well, I'll go watch a game, and it seems like I've watched a quarter's worth of dribbling. And,
Yep.
I've made the comment in the stands and talking to other coaches, I wish I had a nickel for every time the ball bounces out there. You just don't see people making that extra pass or coming across midcourt. And I'm sure you can remember there were days in practice where we didn't allow dribble at all. We had to go up and down the floor, and you could dribble across midcourt, but once the entry pass was made, there was no dribbling.
Yep.
And we had to get our shots moving the ball and moving people, not learning how to move.
Yep.
And, man, I go to games now, and it just kills me to see all these guys. All they want to do is just dribble. And there's no points being put on the board. And then finally somebody gets tired and forces a bad shot.
Exactly.
And or that guy dribbling the ball all over the court ends up taking a shot, and 4 guys are standing around watching him.
And then for me, if you do that, you're probably going to hear the horn. Just start walking over to the bench because that's where you're going to be.
Exactly. Well, I kind of used to think I was a little bit of a mind reader, and I can read the mind of those other 4 kids that are watching that guy dribble going, come on, man, give me the ball.
Yep.
But in scoring, it does bother me because basketball, to me, the reason why I love basketball so much is it was invented to be a game of finesse. And I think so much finesse is taken out of the game now. And as a result, scoring is down. And That's just the way I feel about it. But I just wondered your opinion.
Yep.
And because I don't think that defenses have gotten that much better at all. So let me ask you another question. This has been on my mind for a while. Last year I saw quite a few games, and I saw some big games and some playoff games where late in the game, the coaches would they would go to the free throw line and they would pull their rebounders off the lane, and the shooting team wouldn't have anybody on the lane. And I saw games where the outcome was affected by the fact that there were no offensive rebounders there. And I don't get that. What is the philosophy? Why would you not at least try to get a rebound?
That blows my mind. I don't know why anybody would do that. Matter of fact, I'm on the other side. I have offensive strategy for rebounds, where I call it X, and it's not a call for me. It's every time we shoot the ball, we're in X, where the two guys, they stay as close to the shooter as possible, so that the guy at the bottom is blocking out upward, which leaves that whole area next to the rim wide open, and then we cross each other with the shooting side. If he's a right-hander, the right-hand guy goes first to leave open that spot, because usually a right-hand shooter is going to miss to the right.
Sure.
That left guy swings right in, catches it off the air, off the rim, and puts it back in. So I don't know why anybody would ever do that, especially us too, because we're going to press you. So if we make that free throw, we're right there in your face on an inbound. So who knows, Coach? I have no idea the philosophy behind that. Maybe they practice that, and maybe they want their shooter just to have less people so they can just focus on the rim. I have no idea. Blows my mind.
Don't practice free throws not having people around you. I mean, and I did ask one guy about it, and he told me, he said, well, my guys, they'd probably go over the back and foul. And I'm like, well, teach them not to do that then.
But you know what, Coach? That's precisely why I do what I do, because I don't want them to fight with that guy in front of them. I want them to bring those guys up, and then now we're in front of them. Now they get called over the back. And so, Coach, what I want out of every game is I want at least one extra possession a game. And I'm an analytical guy, so I love statistics and stuff. And they always say that they took an average, I think it was the NCAA, it was about 2 or 3 years ago, with even all the blowout wins and losses, it came down to 6 points. That the average margin of victory was 6 points. And so in my head, where can that 6 points come from? Well, to me, it's going to be special teams. I want at least 2 points. We're going to strive for 2 points a half. So that you think about how many inbound plays you have in a half, maybe 3, 4, 5, or whatever. I want 2 points. I want 2 points per half, and I want to steal at least one offensive rebound on a free throw. And so it's not going to be a strategy. It's not going to be a 5-on-0 kind of, gimme play or something like that. It's going to be on strategy on special teams, where I want to try to steal 6 points a game. So I don't know why anybody would ever do that on a free throw. That blows my mind.
I saw it in a huge playoff game this last year, and I wanted to scream, no, don't do that. Get some rebounders in there. And sure enough, ball came off. The other team grabbed the ball, sprinted across midcourt, dribbled across midcourt, called a timeout. And if you'd have been there, if they'd had rebounders in there, the ball came off long, there was a chance they would have got the rebound, or at least caused some kind of action there to run the clock down a little bit.
Right.
Or if the guy did pick it up, he wouldn't have just a free lane to dribble across, because he wasn't passing the ball. He was their guard, and he wasn't going to pass it. But at least you could have made him turn a couple of times.
Right. Yep.
And eat up a little bit of that clock. Well, that team ended up losing at the buzzer. I don't know, that 3 seconds there, that 4 seconds that maybe that they could have, slowed the game down just, or their progress down just a little bit might have been the difference.
That's
but
right.
I don't get it. And I thought, maybe there's something in the world of coaching right now that I haven't gone to a clinic in 10 years. Okay, well, that answers my question. Let me ask you something about these. The regional tournaments are no longer in existence. Is that correct? So
You know what? I don't know, Coach, if I've heard that or not. For this year,
Yeah.
so that means that we're obviously going to be traveling, right? We're going to be the games are going to have to be spaced out a little bit more, I would imagine.
Yeah, it seems like if there's no regional tournament, which is that I'm pretty sure about that, because when I read that, I went, "Oh my gosh, that's going to make you travel on Tuesday and then turn around and play again
Yep.
on the weekend." And I thought, well, that could be an advantage, but also could be a disadvantage for scouting purposes, for one thing.
Right.
But then it does give you a little bit of advance notice, because now you've got Wednesday through Thursday or Friday to prepare for that regional final game. But I just wanted your opinion on how that's going to affect the playoffs.
I think it really, you said it, Coach, you're going to have to split up your staff. You're going to have to go send somebody down there to go scout. But especially with the state tournament following that, you start playing on Thursday. So if you're playing on a Tuesday, you got a 1-day turnaround to get ready for your first matchup, depending on, what team is playing on Thursday. But
right.
So I would imagine, you'd probably end up playing Monday or Tuesday or something like that. And I would imagine most coaches would probably want to play earlier than later, especially considering who plays. Who is it that plays on Thursdays? Is it 2, 4, and 6, or is it 1, 3, and 5?
1, 3, 5.
1, 3, 5. Yeah. So I would imagine those teams would definitely want to play on Monday, if not everybody playing on Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Or any, and I was never really a big advocate of fall leagues for several reasons. But I didn't tell my guys not to play in fall leagues, but I didn't encourage it either. Are there fall leagues going on now that kids are playing in?
Absolutely. We've actually been playing in fall leagues for probably the last, 5+ years or so, mostly in San Antonio. But actually this year, just because we didn't hear from the people that we normally play in a fall league with, we're actually playing up in Austin on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
So we're playing up in Austin Wednesday nights. Cibolo's up here north of San Antonio.
Sure.
For the listeners that don't know exactly where Cibolo is, but no, yeah. So we're playing on Wednesday nights. We actually have 2 teams in there. We kind of have a split varsity. We kind of have a black team and a silver team, with the silver team kind of being mixed up with some of those JV guys that potentially have the opportunity to play some varsity basketball. And it's super competitive, and they're doing well. And I think for the most part, these gyms are doing a really good job, man. They keep all the family and players outside in the parking lot. You can't enter until about 20 minutes before your game time. No one can enter until the gym has been cleared and the bleachers have been cleaned from the previous 2 teams. And then once you get in, you pretty much have like an 8-minute, 7-minute warm-up. Parents sit down, the ball goes up, and you play, and kids are wearing masks and whatnot. So they check temperatures upon entry. So I think a lot of gyms, and I give credit to all these people that are putting this together, because I think it's down to a science now. And I really think AAU had a contributing factor in that, because AAU was going on all summer long, and they kind of –
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did. And so I went to a lot of tournaments this summer, and you can just see kind of the progression of how they were handling the flow of people coming in and going out. And so I think that's trickled down to now this fall league, where pretty much any gym you walk into, it's pretty much a strict protocol of how they're handling it. And I think that's going to, obviously with volleyball going on right now and football, I think the more and more we do this, the lack of better terms, the universality of it all, right? Everyone's kind of doing the same exact thing now. So
that's going to make for a very smooth transition into the season then.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Well, Coach, I think that was your 5 questions, man. So those were good. Definitely led us down some paths of talking hoops, man. But obviously I know you, and there's going to be some people that know you definitely in the San Antonio area, but I never know who my listener is. So, Coach, if you would just kind of start and talk about where you grew up, a little bit about your childhood, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
All right. Well, I grew up, I was born and lived until I was about in the 5th grade in Oklahoma, northeast Oklahoma. And my dad was a football coach and fell in love with athletics growing up in a home that was consumed by athletics. Dad not only coached football, but he coached basketball, baseball, and he played college football at University of Tulsa.
Coach, I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, he's in their Hall of Honor on 3 teams, not him individually, but his Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, and Oil Bowl teams played in those bowls. And they're in University of Tulsa's Ring of Honor. And so growing up in a coaching home and being around sports all the time, it was just a natural progression that I was going to be interested in coaching and playing. And when I was in 5th grade, we moved from Northeast Oklahoma to Corpus. And I went to high school at Tulsa Midway High School. And I played basketball and baseball, and I was on the golf team. Of course, we only went to about 3 tournaments, but, it was just whoever wanted to come play on the golf team could play. It wasn't like it is today. It specializes as today. But from there, I went to Texas Tech University and played my freshman year at Tech. I was more or less a walk-on and made a team and enjoyed that and got a good background there. Of course, I've always been a Tech basketball fan ever since then. My sophomore year, I was kind of a semi-red shirt. I'd go and practice every now and then. I didn't make all the practices because I did not get the crud beat out of me. It was one of those things. But anyway, after that, my wife and I met there my senior year in college, and we came to San Antonio because I wanted to come to a place where they played good basketball, good high school basketball, and where they had a lot of schools. Because I didn't want to go coach somewhere where I was moving every other year. And so I figured, if I come to San Antonio, I might be able to spend my entire coaching career in San Antonio and not have to move. And fortunately, that's the way it was. And started off coaching at Jay High School, coached there 6 years, and I went to try administration one year out at East Central, and thank God I got out of administration and went back into coaching and got a head job at Wheatley, which is now Brackenridge High School. And several times during my coaching career, I was always trying to get into college coaching, but thank God, it's like that Garth Brooks song, thank God for unanswered prayers, that I never made that transition. The offers that I did have paid so much less than what I was making on the high school level that, I had 5A bills and I couldn't make, that transition, wife and baby, it was one of those deals where you stay right here where you are. And so I didn't bounce around and pursue that dream, thank goodness. But I had several junior college offers, assistant offers, and I had a couple of mid-level D1 entry-level offers. But again, you can't make it on $17,000 a year.
No, sir.
And it was probably, that was a blessing that because it would not have been my personality to sit in an office on the phone recruiting kids at, kissing some 18-year-old spoiled brat, kissing on him to come to our university. That's not my personality. So I probably wouldn't have lasted long anyway. But from Wheatley, I went to Madison High School for a couple of years as an assistant. I felt like I needed to get into, I left my head job at Brackenridge. That was Wheatley. That was my first head job. I left that to go to Northeast as an assistant because I didn't feel like from Wheatley I could make a move into Northeast School District as a head coach, and I needed to get to know more people in Northeast. And so I went to Madison for 2 years as an assistant and kind of proved myself there. And then I was able to go to MacArthur, where I spent 20 wonderful years. And then got to the point where I just felt like it was time for me to move on down the road. And I look back at that. That was a good decision to retire, but also question myself that maybe I should have gone out and found another school that, I could have started a new program, but I felt like I'd done all I could have done at MacArthur, and it was time to move on. And
your first year at MacArthur, what year was that?
Oh my goodness, I wish you hadn't asked that. About 1989, 88, somewhere
okay.
around there.
In my head, I was thinking 87, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not very good at years.
It's crazy, Coach. We probably had this discussion. We probably talked about this before. Maybe we haven't, and I just don't remember. But I didn't know that you had ties to Tulsa as well as Texas Tech. And especially when you said the walk-on piece, Coach, because, I went to University of Tulsa as an undergrad student. I ended up walking on 1 year, my junior year, when Buzz Peterson was there. And then I went to Texas Tech and did my master's, and that's where I met my wife. So we've got some similar stories there, Coach. So that's why I love doing these podcasts, because even though you and I know each other for so many years, me as a player and you as my coach, but on a personal level, sometimes you don't have those kind of conversations. And here we are years later, and I'm learning this. So this is good stuff, man. So tell me a highlight. Tell me a highlight in your playing career and a highlight in your coaching career. It doesn't have to be like something astronomical. It can just be something that you always will remember as a player and something you'll always remember as a coach.
That's a really good question. And I was one of those guys, like a lot of coaches. I wasn't a star player. I love the game and I worked my tail off, but I was never any star player. And I guess the thing that sticks out in my mind, I always will remember, is when I was a high school player. I was a sophomore, and we had gone through all the off season, getting ready for the season. I didn't play football, and we had a coach that was our JV coach. In the first ball game, I didn't get start, and he started a football player over me, and it took me about 2 weeks of just killing myself in practice to prove to this guy that I should be on the floor and not the football player that he was playing. And the guy was a real jerk. And I remember then, ironically, 2 years later, my senior year, this guy had become the head football coach at one of our district opponents. And the second game of district, his basketball coach got in some trouble and got fired, and this guy had to step in to be the head basketball coach. And we played him in our district ball game at his gym, and I hung 26 on him. And I don't know how many rebounds I got, but it was one of the sweetest nights I ever had. It was the sweetest night I ever had as a player, and I made damn sure that he knew and he remembered that, he was trying to put a guy in front of me when I was a sophomore that didn't deserve the spot, and I was a lot better. But, there was an obvious prejudice there in that he was going to play the football player ahead of me. And that was a sweet night. And it was bittersweet that we were beating them by about 18 points early in the fourth quarter, and my coach pulled me out, and I begged him, "Don't, please keep me." And he knew what was going on, and he thought, I better get him off the floor. So,
Coach, I tell you what, the best stories always come out of our athletes when we as coaches do something or say something that piss off our players, but yet some of these players take that personal and they do something about it. So I always like this, because I have a kid who I did a podcast with who's playing professional basketball right now, who I actually put on my practice squad as a sophomore. He went from the B team as a freshman to my practice squad and never playing in a game his sophomore year to end up being on that first team that took us to state in 2013, went on to play basketball at Schreiner, had a year of eligibility, went and played at Liberty University, and now he's playing professional basketball overseas. But the way he came to work every single day was to prove us wrong, and through that made himself better, made the team better. So I always like to hear stories of that. Like, you got the final word, but ultimately it was what, he did to you that drove you, and it made you show out that night. So what about your coaching career, a highlight in your coaching career?
Mike, I was so blessed. I had a lot of highlights that sometimes I remember, and I'm like, just kind of chuckle about, I always felt like it was a highlight to go out and beat a team that you had no business beating. And we had a lot of those, because I think there were times that people would look at us and say, those guys, we went to the Dr. Pepper tournament in Houston and played one of the powerhouses out of Houston, and they were, kind of laughing, looking at us during warm up, and we ended up beating them, and that was a sweet, sweet win. And we had another situation in Round Rock where we played the team out of Memphis. They brought a team in from Memphis, Tennessee, that won the state championship the year before in Tennessee. And these guys were good. They looked like the JC team warming up, and I was like, oh my gosh. And one of our players came by me during warm-up and said, Coach, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to win the ball game. Just that simple. I know we're going to win the ball game. I know how we're going to beat these guys. Well, we went out and we were running matchup zone, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to attack it. The players started arguing with each other. The coach and the players were screaming at each other. We wouldn't end up winning by about 18 points. These were the defending state champions. And the coach, after the game, he made the comment that said, if I'd have known how you guys play down in Texas, I would have never come to this tournament.
Well, then go back.
Coach, all we did is play basketball. Maybe you ought to learn how to coach against a different type of defense.
Yep.
And, it's moments like that you just, you'll always savor. And then again, I was asked one day I used to go out to UTSA and lecture to the coaching classes. And I had a young man ask me, I always had a question and answer session. And at the end, I had a young man ask me the same question. What are some of the highlights? What are some of the big games that you remember? And I told him, I said, it's you remember those big games, but the games that I'll go to my grave with really the strongest memories are the games that you lost, that you feel like you shouldn't have lost, or something didn't go your way, or those games that hurt are the games you remember the most. And that's still true to this day. I mean, there's a couple of games that, I'll be up late at night and go, God dang, we should have won that ball game. We'd have done this, or, that ball hadn't have done that, or referee hadn't made that call. We might have been in the state tournament that year. So it's fun to relive the moments that were just unbelievable, but then it always, in the back of your mind, and I think most retired coaches, in the back of their mind, they always go, God, man, that game against Marshall we lost on that goaltending call, those are the ones that you remember and or that haunt you the most.
Yeah, I think whether you're retired or whether you're currently coaching, it's so true, and you hear all the time, but it's so true. We oftentimes, that's what we remember. We remember the losses, of course, unless you have those special victories, but it's always those 1 point, 2 point games where, the ball goes a different way and you win the game. If something would have happened, or maybe it's a coaching call, I made the wrong call or something like that. And
right.
I wish we would have gone to this defense or switched to this offense or whatever that we think about. But so you talked about how you kind of grew up in a home of athletics. When did you realize that you wanted to coach basketball? Like what was it about the game, or was it always kind of in your destiny that you wanted to coach basketball?
It was always.
From what age?
Like I say, my dad was head football coach, but he also, the school where he coached was a small school, so he also was the assistant. He was head football, but assistant basketball, and he was head baseball, and so I was always around it. But I remember going to little old gyms in Oklahoma. They had a wood burning stove. One of them had a wood burning stove over in the corner to heat the gym. And they had a custodian over there. The whole game was feeding that. It was snowing outside, blizzard. You've been to Northeast Oklahoma, how can you get? And of course, it wasn't back in the Depression, but there's a custodian over there throwing wood and that. And I just felt at home in those gyms. I love the smell. I love the sounds. And I love these gyms. I love the game and the squeaking of the shoes on the wood floor. And, I just loved it. And the crowds in these little gyms were just fanatic and going crazy. And from that point, I was probably 6, 7 years old. I thought, man, I've got to be a part of this. If I'm not playing, I've got to be over here on the bench. So I knew early in life what I was going to do.
That's awesome, man. I tell you what, when most of us talk about basketball at MacArthur, we always talk about the old gym, where your AC was opening up the side doors and putting the fan in the doors. That was our AC,
Right.
So for you to kind of talk about the gyms that you kind of grew up in, it kind of reminds me of the old Mac gym, which, by the way, thank you for that piece of wood that you gave me. What a great idea that it was back then, when obviously MacArthur got the new gym and you had the gym floor kind of cut up and you gave pieces out. So I still have it. It sits in my bookshelf next to one of my pictures when I played at MacArthur. So, Coach, tell me a little bit about what qualities do you think make a great coach?
Well, first of all, you got to love the game, which should be obvious. And I think most coaches do love the game, or they wouldn't be doing it. I think you got to love kids. I think you've got to love watching kids compete and to grow as people. I always resented coaches that if they were assigned to coach a sport that wasn't necessarily their strongest sport or the sport they loved, that did a half-assed job with it and didn't give everything to those kids that they could have to make those kids like the game or appreciate the game or learn the game. I had more respect for those guys. No matter what they coached, they gave everything and they tried to learn. And that's what I tried to do. I coached offensive line for years. Some of the JV jobs I had, I never played offensive line. I wouldn't know. But I did my best. I talked to a lot of guys. I read articles. I went to football clinics. And I did whatever I could, so that I could, if I'm assigned to do something, to work with a kid, I want to try to give him my best. I don't want that kid I never wanted a kid to feel like that coach shortchanged me or that coach, he didn't really care, I've seen coaches during warm-ups, basketball warm-ups, read the newspaper, read the sports section while their team's out there on the floor warming up. And that always made me so dadgum mad. I couldn't stand it. So you've got to want to be able to, if you're assigned to coach something, you need to get out there and give it your best shot. And those guys, to me, are the great coaches.
Yeah, that is so true. You've got to love kids. You've got to love the game. And it reminds me, one year I ended up having to coach volleyball. And I played volleyball kind of growing up, and my wife played volleyball at Texas Tech. So I kind of had a little bit of knowledge of the game and the flow of the game, but I've certainly never coached it before. but coach is coach. I mean, I don't care what you give to me. I may not be a good coach for that specific sport, but I'm going to learn how to be the best coach I can be for
Right.
that sport. Because like you said, coach, it ultimately comes down to the kid. You don't want that kid walking away maybe having loved to do pole vault their whole life, and then here comes a coach that knows nothing about pole vault, and it ruins it for the kid.
Right.
Ultimately, it's about the kid. It's not about you. It's about the kid. Do your job, what you're getting paid for, and go study up on how to be the best coach you can be.
Exactly.
It's halftime.
Coach, it's our kind of what I call halftime, man. So I'm going to throw some 5 quick, easy questions for you, and then we'll get to the second half here. So, man-to-man or zone? And I think I know the answer to this question, but man-to-man or zone?
I'm a matchup guy.
I knew you'd answer that.
I'm a matchup guy, and people. It amazes me. I hear commentators on TV. I've talked to college coaches. They still don't know if matchup is zone or man. And to me, matchup is a defense that can't be put in either category. It's its own category. And so, and I would argue anybody that it's in its own category. It's not man, it's not zone. And
we're certainly going to be talking about the matchup zone. So we'll definitely go there. And then sometime off of camera, we'll have to do some X and O's on matchup zone, because I think I need to bring back the old zip whenever I'm a head coach. But question number 2 for you: favorite basketball player growing up as a kid that you wanted to be like, or was just kind of like your idol at the time?
John Havlicek.
All right, very good. Question number 3: best thing that you have done since retiring? You mentioned traveling, so maybe it's, did you go to some place that was just an amazing trip or something like that?
Man, that is tough. We spent 10 days in Spain 2 years ago, and I'd never thought about going to Spain, but we somehow ended up in Spain, and I love the country. I love the people, and I can't wait to go back there again. It was just a fantastic vacation. And it didn't really start out to be what I thought was going to be that good, but it turned out to be way better than I expected.
Gotcha. Question number 4 is, who was your coaching inspiration while you were coaching?
I can't say that it's one coach. I was a Knight fan, not Bob's demeanor necessarily. I like what he did on the floor. I like offenses he ran. I like defenses he ran. I like, Dean Smith was an inspiration to me. And John Chaney, whom I was very fortunate to get to know on a first name basis, and ended up helping me a lot with matchup when Coach Chaney was at Temple. Those 3 were probably my favorite, and Coach K. Those guys were the guys I kind of modeled my coaching philosophy after.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I've got for you, this might stump you a little bit here, but best piece of advice from your wife while coaching all the years. Yeah, I knew she was in the background there. So
wait, I've been waiting. It's only been an hour. Oh my gosh. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I remember one night we dropped a ball game. And I got home, and you've got to understand that when my wife and I started dating at Tech, she'd never been to a basketball game. But we dropped a ball game one night, and I can't remember the situation, but I got home, and I walked in the house. And of course, I don't know if you knew this, but I did most of the wash here at the house after games. I'd bring the uniforms home, and Linda and I would wash uniforms until we got all the uniforms washed up. We had them hanging all over the house because I didn't want to put them in the dryer and ruin the numbers. But I walked in the house carrying the bag of uniforms. I was chapped because we'd lost the ball game. And the first thing Linda said to me was, well, if you hadn't have got out of the matchup, you would have won the game. And so from that point on, I always questioned myself when I thought about getting out of the matchup.
You're a liar.
I thought, man, maybe I better not get out of the matchup. I'll hear about it when I get home.
You know, my wife, she played volleyball at Texas Tech. I'm sure she kind of understands conceptually the game of basketball, but I always say, like, to my guys, when I come back to school the next day after a win or a loss, typically after a loss, and she's gone to the game and watched, I'll always ask her what she thought of the game, because she doesn't know X's and O's. She doesn't know strategy. She's just going off of what she saw. And oftentimes, whatever she says, that's what I go back and I go to work on the next day with my kids. And I'll tell her, I'll tell the guys exactly what she said, because she's looking at it with a different lens. She's not looking at it.
You will be married a long time.
I sure hope so.
Yes, you will. And my kudos to you, because I know that feeling to give her that equality. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I think
Awesome.
we can't do our jobs without our wives. And
No.
The next episode I actually have ready is actually an episode with two coaches' wives. So Misha Clark, Rodney Clark's wife over at Reagan, and then Crystal Lucero from Westlake. But well, those are my 5 questions for halftime, Coach. I'm going to kind of switch gears on you a little bit and pick your brain here. I would like for you to see if you can recall your top 5 MacArthur players while you coached.
Man, without offending anybody.
Hey, there's no such thing as that, Coach, in the game of basketball, man. You got to have thick skin. No, I really want to hear your top 5.
Chris Doyle, G. Gervin, Ricky Reed, Chad Collins. Man, that 5th one would be –
I'll let you throw in a 6-man.
Okay. Steve Leonard, Tim Lytle.
All right, very good. There you have it.
Yeah, I know I'm leaving off somebody, and I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, but
it's the same thing when people say top 5 NBA players of all time, right? Like, either way, you're going to have to leave off a name. Like, you're leaving tons of people, but you just spent so much time at MacArthur that I thought it would be a good question to ask you who the top 5 that you coached while you were there. All right, so what piece of advice do you have for coaches out there starting or building a program? You know, and I'm kind of asking that too for myself too, right? Because someday I'm going to either take over a program or start a program. But for all of those listening across the country or in the state of Texas, what advice would you have to someone taking over or starting a program?
I think you've got to surround yourself with good people. You got to have good assistants. You got to have a good custodian. Always treat those custodians like they're the most important guy at the school, because they're the guys who can make or break it, your neck every day as far as how good they take care of that gym, or you don't have to. So I always feel like those guys are some of the most unsung heroes of any successful program. And I think you have to present to those players that you're meeting for the first time. You've got to set boundaries, and you've got to set very high expectations and what you expect out of them as people and players, what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. And I think one of the biggest challenges is make them want to learn the game, appreciate the game, and make them want to do whatever it takes to please you as a coach. And so there's a selling job there that you can't just come in and say, okay, I'm the coach, and because I'm the coach, you're going to do it this way. You got to tell them why, and you got to tell them how. And that's one of the things I always try to do with all my players is this is why we're doing this. I wanted them to know the whys of basketball. And then once you understand why, it's a lot easier to teach the hows. And I think that one of the things you've got to do to start a program or keep a good program going, you've got to treat kids firmly but fairly. And they don't get enough firmness in life.
Not anymore.
Probably anymore, they don't get enough fairness in life either. So I want to treat them with firmness but fairly. And I want to try to convince them that I'm going to try to make them as successful as possible. And the formula for success hasn't changed over the years. I don't care what kind of different ideas people come up with. The success formula for success is hard work and dedication, loyalty, and that kind of thing. And so I think that's very important to instill in your players early. And then that faculty, you got to go out and sell yourself to the faculty. And I always felt like that I didn't want faculty members to say, oh, he's just another coach. All he's interested in is winning. He didn't care about, the problems I'm having with that kid in class. And so I always wanted to try to make sure that faculty was on my side. And I always tried to, and you probably can remember this, you better behave in class, because I always tried to tell you guys that when a basketball player walked in that classroom, the teacher would say, oh, good, he's a basketball player. I know I'm not going to have any problems out of him. Yep. And if I do, I know how to solve it.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that we do today with our kids, with grade checks and stuff. And you get a conversation with a teacher, and he or she's like, hey, so tell me about John over here. Oh, he's such a great kid for me. He does fantastic. He's amazing. And then the teacher's kind of like, because the teacher's about to drop on you, right? She's going to say something negative. So when she hears that, she knows that we'll take care of it, But
right.
So that's really good advice. So now I kind of do want to talk a little bit about X's and O's with you. And I'm just particularly, obviously, the matchup zone. As a coach today, matchup zone is not something that I run, but obviously know of because we face it and I see it. Like you said before, it's difficult to beat. You have to think about how you're going to execute your offense against it. Are you going to run your zone offense? You're going to run your man offense. But bottom line is that defense presents problems. It presents issues, and you have to know how to attack it. So just kind of talk to me a little bit about where it came from, because you ran it for years and Coach Murphy's running it. It's been around for a while. Just kind of like what influenced you to run it. Talk a little bit about it. Just kind of dialogue about the matchup zone, if you will. And maybe on the flip side of that, if you were to face yourself, how would you beat it?
Okay. Matchup zone was invented by a guy named Bill Green at Muncie Central High School in Indiana. And Coach Green came up with the concept of matchup because he felt like that, he was playing on a level in Indiana where there were different issues that he had to face, and he didn't have the best material in the world. And okay, how can I be as, I'm not totally effective in the zone. We're not we don't have enough players to play man. We're not quick enough. And so he came up with a matchup and wrote a couple of books about it. Became very successful in Indiana, and then other people started adopting it. And, John Chaney, I mentioned at Temple, was one of the best matchup coaches out there. And when I came to Northeast, I had run a little bit of matchup when I was at Wheatley, because we definitely didn't have the players to match up with Highlands and Sam and Fox Tech, and so I had to do something. And when I came to Northeast, I felt like I had a better opportunity to teach it and a bigger need to teach it, because one thing, players have to be a little bit more intelligent to run matchup than they do a straight zone, and they have to be a little bit more intelligent to run matchup than they do a man-to-man, straight man-to-man. So because you have to learn it. And when I came to Northeast, we played a lot of teams that pushed the ball up and down the floor. We're playing East Central, and East Central was awesome. And so matchup is a great defense against teams that like to push the ball up and down the floor. And just kind of evolved, honestly. And the more I learned about it, the more I, taught it, the more I saw what you can do with it. And kids love it. I mean, they really do. When you start teaching matchup and they start seeing that they're getting over on some, kids like to get over on people.
Yep.
And when they go on the floor and start running matchup and they'd be playing the other team and they'd realize the other team didn't have a clue what they're doing. And they're arguing and they're, they love it. Deep down inside they're going, oh, this is really fun. And, you can have fun playing defense,
yep.
And you're running a number on somebody and they don't know whether to run their man offense or the zone offense. So it was just a natural something, just kind of became second nature to us. And, I never heard anybody say, boy, I can't wait to play MacArthur. Never, even in a couple of years that were down years, I never heard anybody say, oh boy, we'll get to play MacArthur next. It's, oh God, we've got to get ready for MacArthur. Oh, what are we going to do against our matchup? And I'd overhear coaches say, what are you going to do? That was fun. And if you can't have fun coaching, then why do it? And so I felt like we were doing something nobody else was doing. And it was always a work in progress too, because everybody's always trying to think of some new wrinkle.
Right.
And so, you'd see the wrinkle, you'd adjust to it, kids would adjust to it. Okay, now we go on, They might have got a cheap basket on us here and there. Now we know what to do. We know what they're doing. We know the adjustment. And when kids start seeing it on the floor, and kid would come over and say, Coach, I think if we did this, we'd stop that cut. Okay, do it.
Yeah, right.
And, then I know I'm doing a good job because my kids know the game. They're learning the game and they're thinking on the floor. They're not just thinking about themselves and their point production and, their girlfriends sit up the stands. They're seeing stuff and it gives them, that's very rewarding to them to see something on the floor where they can make an adjustment and it changes everything. I had a kid named Andrew Richard that made an adjustment against Judson one night. He was my 4-man. Andrew at the quarter said, Coach, I think I can release this guy and double team down on the post man. It's really going to cause problems. Do it. We ended up winning the ball game. Should have won it.
Yeah.
They had us outmanned. But Andrew made that one adjustment that he saw on the floor and he wanted to try. So let's do it. So
on the flip side, Coach, how would you beat yourself? How would you beat the matchup zone?
If all things considering, And it obviously wasn't the perfect defense, or we'd been in state tournament every year. But dribble penetration is probably the biggest enemy of the matchup. And it was something we worked on every day in practice, was how to stop dribble penetration. We can't let them penetrate. Can't let them penetrate, especially in the middle. So what I would do against matchup, I would run different stacks. I might stack two people inside, stack people, two guys in a high post, one guy on the weak side, different. Try to distort the zone a little bit into something they hadn't seen, and then we'd try to be just penetrating a dog out of the ball into the middle of the floor. Those were the things that, when people started doing more penetration on us, that's when I started worrying a little bit. Because if they're just going to run their zone offense, then we can sit in lawn chairs and, guard that. People that ran the flex, I used to love people that ran the flex because we just stand there and wait on them. Okay, here you go. You got him.
Yeah.
People that tried to dribble the ball, and this is one of my big gripes now about kids, is they want to dribble the ball around the perimeter. That never bothers. You can dribble around all day long. I don't care.
Just pass them off to the next guy.
Yeah, it's when that guy attacks the hoop. Now then we got a problem, because my postman is going to have to help out. Four-man's going to have to help somebody. Now that could create somebody. The other thing about matchup, too, you can't just leave somebody wide open and say, hey, that guy can't shoot anyway. Don't worry about him. And we ran variations out of that where we didn't cover everybody on the floor.
And Judson actually did that to us our second trip to state, and left a shooter open who was, he was inconsistent. I mean, he could shoot the ball. He ended up having 6 or 7 threes in that game at UTSA. And it was just thank goodness he was hitting, because they left him unguarded. And then we ended up going into overtime with Gerald Adele, one of our players, ended up shooting a shot from like half court that went in.
I remember
to take it into overtime, which is crazy, Coach. Prior to that, it was a timeout. It was our ball. Ball was on our side of the court. And, Gerald was obviously, he's playing at Texas right now. Tall guy, 6'6", 6'7" kid, lengthy, could jump. And the shot was actually not going to be his. It was going to be someone else's. And I said, Gerald, I mean, there's seconds on the clock. When the shot goes up, you need to attack this offensive board at all costs. And if anything, you get a dunk put back over this guy. And if anything, they call a foul. They're shooting free throws, but the time is stopped. So no matter what, attack this. And sure enough, man, Ryan shot a shot from the corner, missed it. He goes up, catches it in the air, dunks over the guy, no foul, nothing, and that takes us into overtime the first time. So it was like, did I just tell him to do that? So that was one of those proud moments as a coach. And I'm like, that just happened right before my eyes. But yeah, so well, good. I'm glad you kind of talked a little bit about that, because I always love telling people about the matchup zone, and I always love hearing Murphy yelling zip from across the court. So I think we'll run into Murphy this year too. So, all right, so we're sitting at about an hour and 15 minutes here. We're going to kind of wind things down a little bit, but what do you miss about coaching the most?
Preparation for games. I used to love the strategy involved in games. That and the camaraderie with coaches. Those are the two big things. One of the things I didn't understand, didn't realize what was about to happen to me when I retired. From the time I was 21 years old, going into coaching as a new coach, up until I actually went to a basketball clinic after I'd already retired. And I'm an idiot. I sit up in the stands of this clinic taking notes, knowing that I'm not ever going to coach again. But I'm in there listening to some really good coaches. And one of them was a lady named Sherry Cole that is girls basketball coach at Oklahoma, and she's a motion coach. And she was talking about some things that I had never thought about. And I coached motion for over 20 years. And I'm taking notes. I'm thinking, this is awesome. You know, I really like what she's doing on this. And dawned on me, you're not going to use this. But I still have that notebook. But anyway, the thing that about retirement that I didn't realize was going to hit me from the time, like I said, I was 21 until then, when I was like 58, 59, whenever it was, when I retired, that I studied basketball constantly. I read, I learned as much as I could. I'd watch college games. I never watched the NBA. I don't like the NBA. But I'd watch college games and take notes, you know, write out of bounds plays, whatever. And what I didn't realize was about to happen to me, and it was still a shock to my system even to this day, is that I'd done all that. I'd studied all that. I'd spent hours, you know, reading and talking. I'd pick up the phone in the middle of the night and call a coach and ask questions. I'd go to clinics and hang around. I was one of those nerds that'd hang around and try to catch Al McGuire going down the hall and ask him a question. But then all of a sudden, none of that mattered. And I thought, this has got to be like what a doctor goes through. You practice this all your life. You've learned all this. You've got all this knowledge. And that's it. It's over. You won't use it again. And that's not a good feeling. And that's why when I get to talk to guys like you, I end up wearing them out. So, you know, the idea that all of that and all of it that I learned wasn't good, but most of it was. All of that is just gone.
Yeah. We got to savor the moment while we're here, you know, but
yes, you do.
Hey, I'm glad that, you know, we get to sit down and talk hoops. And, you know, through all this COVID, it's kind of allowed us the opportunity to kind of pick up, you know, hobbies and do stuff. You know, obviously we're back in the school year, but, you know, I was always actually thinking about writing a book. That's kind of on my bucket list, is to write a book. And the title of my book, I've always thought about being called "What's Your Story?" And I've always just thought about going and interviewing people and just writing about their story. So it wouldn't be one long book. It would actually be short stories within the book.
Right.
That kind of evolved into when COVID and people are doing podcasts, and I see people using Zoom and technology to video conference with people, as opposed to finding out when you're available so we can go sit down and talk at a coffee shop. This just makes it so much easier. And so I've been able to connect with people that I've never met before across the country just to talk basketball and hoops. But I'm glad we can sit and reminisce right now. But one of the questions that I had before we wrap things up is, I will never forget this as a freshman at MacArthur High School, 1994, when I was a freshman at Mac, 94, 95, and coming in and making the freshman team and playing A-team basketball and going to the game against East Central. And as a freshman in high school, coming from a small parochial school, just playing public school basketball was just amazing to me. And I can see now as a basketball coach, I see these freshmen, and we've been to state 3 times now in 9 years. And I tell these guys, like, this does not happen. Y'all don't understand. Like, this is a great place to be. If you can make it to the state game, go. You need to go watch this. You need to experience it. You need to understand what the world of varsity basketball looks like, smells like. Go to the Alamo Dome. Go to UT when it was back at UT. Just experience this, because this is once in a lifetime kind of experience. And so when I go back to my freshman year, I can't remember who I went with, but I hitched a ride. Maybe it was with Mike Esquivel or I don't know who it was. And we went and watched that game against East Central. I think the score was 87-91, something like, no. 81-87 or something like that. Coach, I'm off here. East Central scored 81 points, and MacArthur had 76, I believe. And you held them to 81 points when in a season they were averaging 108.8. And I just want you to kind of take me through what you can recall about that game, the experience watching Stan Bonowitz going against G. Gervin. I can remember vividly sitting in the stairs. Like, I wasn't even in the bleachers because it was so packed. I had to stand and sit on a stair. So I would just like for you to kind of relive that moment and kind of talk to us a little bit about what you remember about that game.
Well, that was a special season because I felt like we had the fourth best. I mean, I feel like we had the second best team in the region behind East Central. And I knew it would take a very special game for us to win, even though, I felt like, I love my players, but I felt like, they had that extra man that we needed. And we'd already played them 3 other times that year. We'd averaged over 100 points a ball game. We'd already lost, and we'd lost all 3 of them. And so we just basically, and East Central was a special team, and it wasn't. I didn't feel like they beat us any of the 4 times we lost, and we lost 6 games that year for East Central. I didn't feel like there was one time that their press was what beat us, because we were scoring like crazy. We just couldn't outscore them. And I just felt like there was just one time or 2 times during that, if we could get a stop, we got some stops, but then we were just exhausted. I mean, we were dead tired, and I never will forget. We were ahead at halftime of that game. But I think the score at halftime was like 56-51, 56 points and a half. And I remember walking down into the dressing room, and you're right, man, it was just so crowded in there. You had to fight my way to the dressing room. And I'm thinking, we're in trouble. We're ahead, but I'm thinking, hey, we're in trouble. And because I knew we couldn't keep that pace up for the whole ball game. And that was the only way we could win, was to keep that pace up. And I knew, Gerv was exhausted. Ricky Reed had 3 fouls. He was exhausted. I mean, they had laid it on the line for the whole first half. I knew sooner or later that extra man that they had, or extra 2 guys, because I couldn't give rest to Rick or G. I mean, they had to be on the floor the whole time. Jody Griffin, they were on the floor the whole time. And I thought, man, we're behind. I mean, we're in trouble here. But it was a great game, and it was fun. After the game, of course, it kills you lost, but I knew they were the best team in the state. So I felt like, maybe we're about the 5th or in the state. But after the game, one of the saddest things that always happens to you, and I know you feel this way as a coach, is when that last game is over. That's a chapter in life that you'll never get back. And then I realized after that game that, man, I may never coach this kind of player ever again. I mean, to have 2 guys on the floor like G and Rick that could score at will. And, Gerv averaged, 28 a game, but against playoff teams, he averaged 32 a game. I mean, that's something. Reed averaged over 20 a game. And I thought, man, you may never, ever coach 2 guys that when you go on the floor, you're going to get 40 to 50 points a game out of 2 guys. Just doesn't matter what happens. You're going to get that. And, so that was sad. But then a funny anecdote was we're going out, and a friend of mine ran into me and said, hey, do you realize you guys closed down I-30 281 today? I said, what? And he said it was so crowded, people trying to get to Incarnate Word, the traffic was backed up on 281, and we closed the freeway down. I thought, wow, a high school basketball game in Texas closes down a freeway. So
I'll never forget that game, Coach. And I mean, just that kind of carries with me, because for more reasons. Just being a freshman and experiencing, just like you talked about, you know, with the wood burning in the gym, the sights, the smells, the atmosphere.
Right.
That's an atmosphere of a game that I'll never forget. Being a freshman and watching players like G and Rick and you know, Chip, you know, and those guys, and it was so fantastic to be a part of. And then as a coach now, being able to be a part of the state Final Four and going to that and trying to tell kids, you know, to remember this and savor this moment and just close your eyes and listen, because not a lot of people get this opportunity. But Coach, hey, I really thank you for sitting down and talking with me today. It's been a pleasure. You know, just being able to talk to you and talking basketball and relive some of these moments at MacArthur. They stand with me forever. I appreciate all that you've done for the game of basketball and for those people and coaches in the San Antonio area that got to learn from you, watch you, listen to you at clinics, or just kind of study you from afar. And I know that you have had an impact on several players, and I'm sure you've had the same impact on coaches. So, again, thank you, Coach, for sitting down with me.
Well, thank you, Michael. I think that what you're doing is awesome. And, you know, I appreciate guys that, and you in particular, that are out there promoting basketball, promoting coaching, and doing things the right way. And unfortunately, you know, I've run into some guys during my coaching career that didn't do things the right way. But I think you guys are doing a great job out at Steele, and you in particular doing a great job, and I just wish you the best. And,
I appreciate that, Coach, and hopefully someday you can come watch one of our games. I'll send you a schedule, and we'll hopefully connect after.
I'll be there. I'll be there. I'd love to do that, and I'd love to talk basketball anytime you want to talk. Give me a holler.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate it. You have a blessed day, and we'll talk soon.
Good deal. Thank you, Michael. Good luck to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Coach Mike on the Mic, Let's Talk Hoops. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you subscribe and click the notification button, and then share it with your friends. If you're so inclined to do so, would you please rate and review this podcast so that I can help grow this community of listeners? I hope there was something that you heard today that entertained you or connected you to the game of basketball. If you'd like to be a guest or know someone who would be a great guest on the show, please comment below or reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. Until the next time we meet, the ball is now in your court. Be someone's champion today.